Hello everyone, this is a short video on how to measure your hatchling leopard tortoise. This video is also applicable to other species of tortoises that you may have. The topics that I'll be covering in this video are when and why to measure your hatchling, what to use, what is the expected growth rate, and how to measure your hatchling, and I'll be doing a demonstration on this. So the first point is when and why to measure your hatchling. I recommend you do this monthly so you can monitor your tortoise's development and growth rate closely. For example, you can measure the length of your hatchling on the first of every month, as shown here, which works out to be every 28 to 31 days. Or if you prefer, you can measure them on, for example, the first Saturday of each month. You'll notice if you do it this way that some months will have 5 Saturdays and others will have 4 Saturdays. So you'll be measuring them approximately every 4 to 5 weeks. But this doesn't matter as the growth rate shouldn't change that much over 1 week. Next we'll go through what you can use to measure your tortoise. There's a number of different ways that you can do this, but a couple of very inexpensive ways to do it are: option 1 would be to use a piece of paper, then mark the length of the tortoise on the paper, and then you can measure this afterwards. Another option would be to use a piece of wood with a straight edge, and then you attach a tape measure or ruler to it, making sure that it's lined up with the edge of the wood. Obviously you need to make sure there's no sharp bits or splinters in the wood that you're using. So I'll demonstrate the first option. The items that you'll need for this are paper, a pen, a ruler, the weight and length chart. So on here I've got weights and lengths for a particular tortoise that's about 3 months old, and this will be the tortoise that I'm measuring today. And you'll need your tortoise. So the first thing to do is disinfect the area that you'll be using with tortoise safe disinfectant, just in case there's anything that might be harmful to them. I do have another video on what tortoise safe disinfectant I use if you want more information on this. So to measure them, I get a bit of paper and push it tight up against the wall. And then what we'll be doing is measuring from this point here to the back of the shell, this point here. To do this, we'll be very gently pushing the tortoise against the wall and then marking on the paper where the back of the shell comes to. Okay, so first we need to double check that the paper is tight against the wall. You need to make sure it doesn't slip underneath the skirting board or whatever you're measuring against. Then very gently push your tortoise against the wall so its head goes into its shell. Then mark on the paper where the back of the shell comes to. Then we'll get our ruler and measure the length. So this particular tortoise is 5.7 centimetres. Then we can mark this down on the weight and length chart. The other option I mentioned for measuring is to use a piece of wood and tape measure. So same thing again, put your tortoise on the wood and very gently push him against the wall. And then we can measure here. I don't think you can see that very well, but again it's 5.7 centimetres. Next we'll cover what is the expected growth rate for a hatchling leopard tortoise. Once you've measured and written down your tortoise's measurements, you can then compare it to previous months. And what we're looking out for here is a slow and steady growth rate. Each tortoise will grow at different rates, even those that are kept in identical conditions and fed on the same food. But what we're expecting for a hatchling leopard tortoise is somewhere between 1 to 4 inches per year, or 2.5 centimetres to 10 centimetres a year. So if we look at the growth chart we completed earlier, we can see the growth rates are 4.5, 5.0, 5.4 and 5.7. So this is a nice and steady growth rate for this little tortoise. If you do notice that your tortoise isn't growing as expected, then first of all check you're doing the measuring correctly and that your paper is lined up against and not under the edge of what you're measuring against. For example, if you're using a skirting board, then the paper may have slipped slightly underneath the skirting board. Secondly, compare the growth over the past few measurements that you've taken, just to make sure it's expected for your particular tortoise. Thirdly, check the weight of your tortoise to make sure they've been gradually putting on weight as well. I do have another video on how to weigh your hatchling if you want more information on this. And fourthly, if you're still concerned, then I suggest you do a health check straight away. And I do have another video on how to check the health of your hatchling. The next couple of slides show the growth rates for other hatchlings and young leopard tortoises that I have. And this is to show that different tortoises grow at different rates, even though these ones were kept in the same tortoise table and fed on identical foods. So in summary, I recommend that you measure your tortoise monthly, using either a piece of paper and ruler, or by making your own simple measuring device by using a piece of wood and tape measure. Keep a record of the monthly measurement so you have something to refer back to. Check for slow and steady growth rates by comparing with previous measurements. And a rough guide for a hatchling leopard tortoise for its first year, somewhere between 1 to 4 inches growth. Thanks for watching my video, and if you've enjoyed it, please click the thumbs up and subscribe to see my other videos.